The Mayan long count calendar mysteriously drops off the edge on December 21, 2012. Will that day be the end of the world? That's our topic on His Voice today. It's no secret that planet Earth is in trouble. If you look around, that fact is obvious. Our economy is a mess. Mass starvation continues to devastate parts of the world. Increasing natural disasters are wiping out human lives. Our healthcare situation is a mess. Diseases like heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke continue to take the lives of millions of people around the world. Concerns about terrorism, concerns about Iran and other rogue countries developing a nuclear bomb. Again, it's no secret that planet Earth is in trouble. And in the last few months, the last couple of years, a theory has surfaced concerning this year, concerning the year 2012, especially concerning the day, December 21, 2012. There's a lot of speculation going on, especially on the internet, that we are fast moving toward December 21, which will be, or could be, the day of the end. As I mentioned, the internet is just buzzing with theories about this. There are tons of websites. You can do an internet search, 2012 end of the world. It's just endless. There are television programs that have discussed this. There are documentaries. There are novels. There are nonfiction books. Sony Pictures has gotten into the act. They've capitalized on the interest around the world in this topic, and so they've put out a movie simply called 2012. It's quite dramatic, and it takes the position that something big is coming. December 21 is a significant day. If you were to watch this movie, you would see that it is literally packed with special effects. The earth rolls, convulses, quakes, and shakes. Islands sink, mountains disappear, asteroids come down and wipe out cities, everything in their path. Tidal waves just sweep across the planet, and the devastation just continues on and on and on. It's quite a dramatic movie, and it simply illustrates the fact that a lot of people are concerned. A lot of people are wondering, is 2012, is it going to be the final year of humanity? Is December 21 the big day? The History Channel has also been a strong promoter of 2012 theories. They've produced at least 3 documentaries on this topic. I've been contacted by a number of production companies that have produced programs for the History Channel dealing with Bible prophecy. I've been on 3 of them. I haven't been on anything dealing with 2012, but I'm interested in what is coming out of that channel. I watch it often with interest, and these particular documentaries dealing with 2012 have a very definite position. I'm not saying I agree with everything that they say, but the position is pretty clear, and that is that we don't have much time left. That December 21, 2012 is going to be a very significant day. They present supposed proof to support this from a variety of sources, from the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans. Some of their prophets or seers or oracles, as they call them, supposedly looked off into the future and saw this very year in their visionary future crystal ball gazing. Medieval Merlin is another one that's presented as supposedly predicting 2012 would be the last year on planet Earth. Nostradamus is another one. The American Hopi Indians. And the list just goes on and on. The ancient Chinese. And the History Channel puts these different ideas together, and they put together a rather compelling case that we're in the final days and that something big is coming. And they think that 2012 and December 21, that really possibly could be it. And a lot of people have watched these programs, and a lot of people, to be honest, are quite frightened about it. It's also no secret that the biggest spark for 2012 theories is the ancient Mayans. The Mayans existed, at least largely. There are still some Mayans today, but their civilization flourished in Central America from the 3rd to the 9th centuries. They have a reputation of being scientific, mathematical, and astronomical geniuses. They studied the stars, they put together calendars, and the red-hot issue is that their highly sophisticated long count calendar mysteriously drops off the edge on the day December 21, 2012. It started in 3114 BC. It goes down about 5,000 years, and that's the last day, December 21. And as a result of this, a lot of people have speculated and become concerned that maybe the Mayans looked ahead and maybe they saw something. That's why their calendar ends that day. Maybe they knew from their study of the stars that there was going to be some big realignment of the planets that would result in the demise of humanity. There's also speculation that on the same day, on December 21, there would be something called a galactic alignment. And apparently this galactic alignment means that the Earth and the Sun and the center of the Milky Way will be in perfect alignment, and that's going to do some kind of terrible things that are going to happen to the Earth. It's going to result in cataclysm, disaster, and potentially the end of life as we know it. That's the theory. And again, the speculation is that the Mayans, they understood this. They saw that this was coming, and so they predicted 2012, December 21, when their calendar came to an end, this was going to be it. And so as we approach that day, as we approach December 21, tick, 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 there are clocks on the internet. You can do a Google search and you can find them where they're counting down. They're counting down the day. They're counting down to the minute of how much time we've got left until the big day, to the grand conclusion, to the finale of the end of the world. There's one thing that I definitely agree with on the History Channel that I have seen a number of times, and that is that they have said before that when it comes to all cosmic matters, there's really one source of information that is more reliable than anything else that we can look at. And that reliable source of information is the Bible. And I agree with that. I agree with the fact that God's book is the final authority when it comes to all of these cosmic matters. I don't think that the History Channel has the last word on very many things. I don't think that Sony Pictures have a corner on what is going to happen in the future. I don't think that all the websites that are out there necessarily are teaching the truth. And neither do I think that the Mayans, who had a lot of problems in their civilization, the more you do your homework, you'll discover that the Mayans were real experts about really the future and about what's supposed to happen at the end of time. I do believe that this book is the source of the most accurate information that we can find. It's the Holy Bible. I've been reading my Bible for 33 years. I grew up in a Jewish home in Southern California. It wasn't a religious family. We didn't really pray. We didn't read our Bibles. We didn't hardly ever go to the synagogue. As a teenager, I just got lost in a world of drugs and wild living. But when I was 20 years old, through a whole series of what I consider to be providential events, I picked up a Bible for the first time in my life, and I began to read. And I've been reading it ever since. I've been reading it for 33 years. I now direct a ministry called White Horse Media, and our goal is to help people to get ready for the end of the world. We picked the name White Horse because of Revelation 19 that describes Jesus Christ coming back in verse 11. And so this has really been the area of my expertise. I don't watch the History Channel to gather inside information. I watch it as an interested observer. But I read my Bible to find out really what the future holds. So let's open our Bibles and let's take a look at Matthew chapter 24. And let's take a look at the teachings of Jesus Christ. This book points to him. He is the center from Genesis to Revelation. Jesus Christ is the greatest teacher the world has ever seen. Our calendars, BC AD, is still somewhat dated based upon the event of the fact that he came down here 2,000 years ago. And this is what the Bible reveals, and it points to the teacher, the great teacher, who is Jesus Christ himself. 2,000 years ago, Jesus was sitting on a mountain called the Mount of Olives. This is described in Matthew chapter 24. Matthew 24 goes into great detail about the future. In verse 1, the Bible says that Jesus went out and he departed from the temple, the Jewish temple, and his disciples came to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, "Do you not see all these things? Surely I say to you that not one stone will be left upon another that will not be thrown down." So Jesus described the destruction of the Jewish temple, which did happen in the year 70 AD. The Romans came under Prince Titus. They made war on the Jews. They broke into the city and they burned the temple down to the ground. And just as Jesus said, not one stone was left upon another. And as the disciples heard what Jesus was saying, they were shocked by that and they wanted to know more about the future. And so Jesus was there, and in verse 3, the Bible says that as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. And they said, "Tell us, when will these things be?" Concerning the destruction of the temple. And then they equated the destruction of the temple with the end of the world. And so Jesus said, or they said to him, "When will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" Now that's quite a question. That's the question that people are asking today. What will be the sign of his coming and of the end of the world? Will there be an end of the world? Is all of this speculation just speculation? Is there any truth anywhere out there concerning the end of the world? Or is this just an idea that you can relegate to freaks that happen to stand on street corners and hold up signs that say the end is coming, the end is coming, the end is coming? Maybe I shouldn't say freaks. Some of them are very sincere, zealous people, but they're often looked down upon by most who look at their signs. But anyway, is there anything to their signs? Is this just a crazy, wild idea that has no merit for an intelligent mind as we contemplate this from a sober perspective? What does the Bible actually have to say? What did Jesus say to the disciples' question? Tell us, what will be the sign of the end of the world? In verse 4, and through the rest of the chapter, Jesus begins to list. He warns the disciples not to be deceived. In verse 4, Jesus answered and said to them, "Take heed that no one deceive you." So he said, watch out for false ideas about this subject. He said, be careful, don't be led astray. And as you continue to read this chapter, Jesus listed a series of signs, many different signs, that would indicate that we were getting closer to the big day. But did he specifically mention an end? Did he say there would be an end of the world, or is this just wild-eyed, crazy thinking? Well, let's take a look. In verse 5, Jesus said, "Many will come in my name, saying, 'I am Christ,' and they will deceive many." That's one of the signs. "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." So there Jesus talked about the end. He said there will be an end. There's going to be things that are going to happen first, but then there will be an end. As you keep reading, in verses 12, 13, and 14, he says the same thing. Verse 12 says, "Because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will wax cold. But he who endures to the end, the same shall be saved." So there's the second time. He says there is an end. There's things happening that need to happen first, but eventually it will come. Probably the clearest verse is in verse 14. In verse 14, Jesus said, "For this gospel of the kingdom," the word gospel means the good news of his grace. In the midst of a world of trouble and sin and sorrow and heartache, and there's still going to be one final burst of God's love, goodness, and grace in the midst of a lost world. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached as a testimony to all the nations. It'll be preached in all the world as a testimony to all the nations. And then, look carefully what Jesus says, "And then shall the end come." So here we have 3 times Jesus spoke about an end. And finally he said the end would come. And so according to Jesus Christ himself, the great teacher, that the calendar is dated BC AD, his life is the most important life that's ever lived, has ever been lived on this earth. There are more books written about Jesus Christ than any other human being who's ever walked this earth. And here the master teacher himself says that after the good news goes to all the world, as a testimony to all nations, then the end will come. And so based on that, based on what God says to my heart and to your heart, it's pretty clear to me that Jesus Christ definitely believed in a global consummation. That one of these days there would be an apocalyptic grand finale. Then the end will come. That's what he said. Well, the next question is, will it come in 2012? What about all the speculation? What about the apocalyptic or apparent apocalyptic date, December 21, 2012? Is everything moving toward that moment? Well, we'll find out. We're not quite ready yet to answer that question, but I will in a little while. But let's go back to our Bibles. In Luke chapter 21, we have a parallel sermon that's written in Matthew 24. Luke 21 is basically Luke's version of what Jesus said in Matthew 24. And he also talks about the signs of the times and things that are going to be happening on earth prior to the end of the world. And we need to take a look at some of these things. Let's look at verses 10 and 11. Verse 10, the Bible says, "Then he said to them, 'Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, and great earthquakes in various places, and pestilences, and there will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven.'" Jesus listed that there would be a lot of things going on, and somebody may look at that and they may think, well, Pastor Steve, earthquakes, wars, pestilences, which means diseases and things like this, these things have been going on for a long time. They might think, they've been going on for thousands of years. Earthquakes are not new, famines are not new, diseases are not new. How can you look at this and say that these things that are happening right now that are similar to what we're reading here, that these genuinely are signs that we in this generation are getting closer to the end of the world? Well, I acknowledge the fact that these things have been going on for a long time. But I also know from my research, and a lot of other people are aware of this, that these kind of things have been increasing in the last couple of years. They have been escalating like never before. Here's an article that came out in the Associated Press in December of 2011, talking about the disasters that have been hitting this planet like never before. There are things that are going on right now that haven't been happening like they are right now. This article is called "Billion-Dollar Weather Disasters Smash U.S. Record." Here's a report from Washington Associated Press that America smashed the record for billion-dollar weather disasters this year with a deadly dozen and counting. The article continues and says, "With an almost biblical onslaught of twisters, floods, snow, drought, heat, wildfire, the U.S. in 2011 has seen more weather catastrophes that caused at least $1 billion in damage than it did in all of the 1980s, even after the dollar figures from back then are adjusted for inflation." And so this article tells us that when you look at the disasters that have hit this planet, especially America, since just 2011, you look at that 1 year period, this article says that there were more disasters in that 1 year than the entire 1980s combined. And there's other things that have been recently going on, and these are causing people to look and think, wow, we've never seen it, we've never quite seen it like this.
The millennium. Will it be 1,000 years of peace on earth, the age of Aquarius, or something totally different? Find out amazing facts about this often misunderstood topic of the Bible in today's free offer by Steve Wohlberg, The Millennium. Order your free booklet today by calling 1-800-782-4253. You can also write to us at White Horse Media, P.O. Box 1139, Newport, Washington, 99156.
Are you searching for answers to difficult family issues? Then you will be blessed by Counsel for the Heart, a 13-part series with Junie Lawson dealing with the family. Order the entire 13-part DVD series for only $34.95. To order, call 1-800-78-BIBLE or order online at whitehorsemedia.com, where you will find many other inspirational resources. or write to White Horse Media, P.O. Box 8057, Fresno, California 93747.
On our website, which is hisvoicetoday.com, we have a link to a fascinating video, which is called 14 Days of Global Cataclysm in August of 2012. If you were to click on that, and you can find it on YouTube as well, 14 Days of Global Cataclysm. The amazing footage that's there is just shocking. It's absolutely amazing. And it's describing what's happening in America and in other countries, and about the severe weather just during those 14 days. One of the reports says that it was the warmest 6 months on record. You see pictures of crops and farmland and just the devastation because of the drought that has hit the heartland of America. It also lists that there were 1,452 counties that were declared disaster areas because of the drought. And at the same time, there's more footage that takes you to Johannesburg, South Africa, and on August 7, 2012, it snowed in South Africa. And you see these pictures of people who are absolutely shocked. Snow in August? Can you believe this? And the basic purpose of this video is to show you that life is not continuing as normal on planet Earth, that there are big things that are happening that are totally unusual, totally out of the ordinary, that are extraordinary, that have a very strong apocalyptic flavor. And that's what's happening right now. I don't have time in this program to go into all the details like I want to do about the Mayan calendar, about December 21, about whether that date itself is going to be of any great significance, but I will do that in part 2. We're going to call this part 1 of 2012 and the end of the world, and the next one coming on His Voice Today will be part 2. But I can say, and I can tell you, based upon what we've covered and what we see in our Bibles, that we are definitely living in apocalyptic times, and that something big is definitely on the horizon. If we go back to Matthew chapter 24, the chapter that we started with, talking about what Jesus said about the future and about the end of the world. In verse 14, again, Jesus is very, very clear. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. So Jesus said there will be an end, but he said that the good news of the kingdom would be preached first. And the word gospel, again, means good news. In the midst of all the bad news, there's good news. There's going to be one final burst of God's love and His power and His grace, that in the midst of all the problems, we can still know that there is a God in heaven who loves us, who sent His Son to die on a cross for our sins because He cares. He rose from the dead, He went to heaven, and at the very end, He will come back to get us and to take us home. And again, we'll discuss this more in part 2. But the question now is, as we wait for the end to come, should we be scared? As we look at all these disasters and all these terrible things, snowing in South Africa, drought in America, and the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. Should we lose our minds over this? Should we be so frightened and scared that we live in fear that raises our blood cholesterol and contributes to heart disease or stroke? No. The answer is no. God doesn't want us to be afraid. In fact, at the very end of the book of Matthew, the very last sentence is very encouraging. It talks about after Jesus rose from the dead and after He gave as He was giving His last commission to His disciples, this is what He said. Jesus said, "And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the world." So yes, there will be an end of the world. Yes, there are problems that are going to be increasing on planet Earth before the end comes, but as we wait for the end and as we get closer to the end, Jesus said He's with us. He's with us all the time, all the way to the end. So we know that we have His presence with us. I've been told, I haven't actually counted them, that there are 365 times in the Bible where the phrase "fear not" is found, one for every day of the year. I do know that 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 says that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. The Lord does not want us to panic. He wants us to trust in Him, to trust in His love, that He's with us no matter what, and He'll be with us all the way to the final apocalyptic conclusion of this world. I heard a story once about a little girl that had just started to sleep in her big girl bed after being raised in mommy and daddy's bed. And shortly after she got into her big bed for the first time, she was scared. And the lights were out, it was dark, and she was scared. So she went into her parents' room and she said, Daddy, I'm scared. Can I sleep with you? And the father said, sure, honey, hop on the bed. And so she did, and he turned off the lights, and she was laying next to him, but she was still scared, even though even though she was next to Dad. And so then she said, Daddy, is your face turned toward me? And he said, yes, dear, my face is toward you. Don't be afraid. I'm right here with you. And as I think about that precious little story, I think about how in the midst of all the problems in this world and the darkness of life on planet Earth, that Jesus is reaching out His hand to us. He loves us. There's still good news. He said, I'll be with you always, even to the end of the world. We don't need to be afraid. We can trust God. We can trust His love. And we know that one of these days, life is going to get really, really good. It's going to be wonderful. Heaven's going to be great. Eternity is going to roll and be fabulous for you and for me if we follow Jesus and if we follow God. You have just heard His voice today.
We hope you've enjoyed this timely message from Pastor Steve Wohlberg, and we want you to know that Whitehorse Media is deeply committed to bringing you many more simple messages straight from the Bible, designed to educate the mind, inspire the heart, and help bring our viewers and their families closer to God. To learn more about Whitehorse Media, or to watch more of Pastor Steve's television programs online, including his powerful new series of 2-minute talks, visit hisvoicetoday.com. That's hisvoicetoday.com. If you have any prayer requests, you can email them to us at prayerrequests@hisvoicetoday.com. If you would like a free copy of Steve Wohlberg's audio CD, Behold a White Horse, you can call us at 1-800-78-BIBLE. That's 1-800-78-BIBLE. We hope you will join us next time for another inspiring His Voice Today presentation with Steve Wohlberg. Until then, keep the faith.